Hi, and happy Monday. I'm Sharon Dinges, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm going to welcome you to my very first virtual office hours. And I'll be expanding this as I go forward, and will likely change the format of this so I can actually go LinkedIn Live. But right now, that's a little too much to be juggling around, right? So I'm using Zoom. We're all familiar with Zoom. And what I'll be doing is giving you a little bit of an overview of the full product launch of my Fit Facility Training Challenge. I have two sessions kicking off this week, and this week being the beginning of April 2025. And the first one is on Thursday. That's actually my favorite one. I still have some seats left on Thursday. Also have some seats left for the Wednesday session. So if we take a look at this, and let me see if I can share my screen in a somewhat elegant manner, we'll see. Again, going completely ad hoc on this. My classes, my training classes are not ad hoc because you're paying for these. They're a professional service, and I want to make sure that you have the absolute best experience possible with those. However, for this, I just want to be messy middle. Let's just go live. Let's have some fun with this because I like to do that. And if you take a look on the screen right now, this is the format for the Fit Facility Challenge. And so it will be a 4-week session. This one that I have pulled up happens to be kicking off this Thursday, April 3rd. And what happens is it is a 4-week session. And what it does is it builds progressively. So we're going to begin FIT, so facility infrastructure, right? So what are the systems and the equipment that exist in typical buildings, right? So we'll take a look at that, go into that. Why does it matter to know that when you are looking at high performance buildings or even buildings in general these days? What if you want to actually take advantage of some utility energy efficiency upgrade rebates? This applies to you as well. So week one is facility infrastructure. We'll be going over that. Week two then goes into facility information, and that is next week, April 10th. And that goes to, all right, we've got these systems, we have this equipment that's in there. What kind of information do we get from those systems, right? Why does it matter? You typically these days you're spending a lot of money. Are you getting the bang for the buck, right? The value for the dollar. Week number 3, so that's April 17th, is facility integration. So great, you've got these silos of control, hopefully control, silos of information in your building, silos of systems and equipment. But are they silos? I keep using the word silos because in many cases, they are standalone, as in the lighting control system, if you have one, or even the lights may not, or they might, talk well with the HVAC system. So when you're building, we'll say it's called going occupied, but when people come to the building in the morning, if you've set things up, even with a programmable thermostat, you can keep it simple if you have a small building. Or if you've got a larger building with your energy management system, your facility management system, your building management system. And it's time for a little coffee. Regardless of how you want to describe it, if you would like to have a high performance building, if you would like to save on the cost of energy, and we all do, and it's all about saving on the cost of energy. I don't care about green credits. I don't care about carbon neutrality. I do. But what I care about is energy efficiency. Why would you use extra energy if you don't need to? So with this, when we take a look at that integration side of things, is why not have your programmable starting? I've got people in the building at 8 a.m., so we'll start cooling it down. Say maybe 6 a.m. we go occupied, kind of occupied pre-cool if I'm in Arizona, so we want pre-cooling. But when you bring on the HVAC, why not also allow the lighting to go on, right? And perhaps even more importantly is at the end of the day, when the people leave the building, shut down or go to unoccupied standby or unoccupied set points for your HVAC system, and turn off lights. If you don't need lights on in a certain area, don't have them on overnight. Now there's strategies. You've got cleaning crews, you've got security, things like that. But do you really need to have the light on in the equipment room, in the supply closet, right? Sometimes that'll be on always because people just don't shut it off, right? That extra 2 seconds to turn it on or turn it off. So week number 3 goes into let's make the rubber hit the road and integrate the information, but let's also not get carried away with it, right? Because in today's world, integration costs money and we want to be as efficient as possible. So sitting back and determining where might it make sense to integrate these systems, to share information between systems, whatever that happens to be. And finally, in week number 4, which is April 24th, is when we bring it all together. So if you're joining me for this, what you may be doing, you're someone who's involved with owning, operating, or occupying a building, or you might be someone, you might be an HVAC contractor, you might be a property management company, you might be a real estate company. You could be any number of these roles, right? And you also care about a fit facility. Again, the infrastructure, the information, the integration. And so week number 4, that's 3, 4, week number 4, what we'll do is let's put together a roadmap. Let's put together a plan for your facility. There are some very simple things that and straightforward things that can be done to immediately see improvements, right? And then as you go forward, what are the opportunities along the way? I brought many products to market over the years, whether they're physical products or software products or services. And one of the key things is developing a product roadmap. So do you have a roadmap for your facility? And your facility could be an office, just an office space, right? Just a one room that you occupy. It could be a floor if you're in a multi-story building. It could be the building, it could be multiple buildings, it could be a global series of buildings. Whatever it is, the fit facility system works for you. So I invite you to check out and actually register for my fit facility training. And again, I have 2 sessions kicking off this week. And again, as you can see on the left, here's showing the information for the Thursday session. It will be identical for the Wednesday session, which actually begins on April 2nd. And the time is, as you can see, if you're Eastern time zone, I break it down again, just because there is so much information that we humans need to process that I don't want you to need to do mental gymnastics to decide when you're going to be popping in. So what I'll do at this point is I'm going to do my office hours, right? I've taught at colleges and at tech schools and universities over the years, and we would have office hours, right, where my students would stop in or other faculty would come by. And the other side of it is whether it's the students and or just simply hanging out, right? Come on by. Let's have a little coffee. It might be lunchtime. We're going on noon on the East Coast right now as I'm filming this. So I'm just going to hang out online. I'm going to stop sharing here so we can hang out and I can see if anyone is in the room. And yeah, I'll post this when I'm done and we'll just go from there. How does that sound? All right. I'll see you on the flip side. In fact, while I'm here hanging out a little bit, why don't I get some registration links set up in here and go out to my Zoom to go there. Let's just see what we've got going on. All right. and hopefully I'll remember that I'm live, not do anything bizarre or start playing with my dogs, which actually could be fun. They may need to make a cameo appearance from time to time. But again, come on by and join me, guys. I'll tell you, I might ramble from time to time because I'm a little bit of a rambler. And my hope is as time goes on, whether you get technical value from this, you might get some real comedic relief by hanging out with me during these virtual office hours, right? So again, let me take a look and drop some registration links in here. How does that sound? All right. It's funny. One of the things that I'm learning are the different ways, right, that we can interact online. Kind of fun. This is kind of nice. I created my graphic, right, for my products graphics in Canva, and I'll be exploring that a little bit as well because there's a lot of capabilities within Canva for production. And part of what I'm doing, I guess, as I'm going through here is sharing what I learned for others who might be interested as well in doing similar things. So over the weekend, playing with Canva, playing with Shopify of all places to sell virtual product, right? Um, and as I go forward here, and as we continue to build momentum, again, I'm in the Southern Arizona area, and right now going virtual because that's the broadest reach, right, to see who might be interested in joining. But the other part of it is when I have actual in-person, which I actually prefer is the in-person because I really like that one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one interaction, right? That the in-person stuff. And so as we go forward, um, we'll also have those options as well. But why wait, right? It's early in the season, and the other thing is rebates, right? So I've been working with SRP, Salt River Project, is the utility that serves my part of the world. And I've been working with their experts, and they call them trade allies or the energy efficiency allies. And they are wrapping up their fiscal year right now. But there are some crazy rebates available, right? And so they're finishing up actually what they're calling fiscal year 2025. Let's do this. I'm going to ramble a bit, but I've got a whole list of here's their standard business programs. I'm going to pull this a little closer to me, right? So here's SRP, and on the back side, and this wraps up by April 15th, having all the paperwork together. So everything can be handled by April 30th. And then there's a new program that begins for fiscal year 2026. But just as a few examples, right? If you install new packaged heat pumps, right? Something on a roof, the rebate, you need to have paperwork and things like that that go along with this, but per ton, cooling ton, $110 to $135 rebate to you. And so that's if you have a 10-ton unit, that's 1,100 to 1,350 that's going to come back to you. When you take a look at smart thermostats, right? $150 each. That's if you do it yourself or if you have your handyman do it. And if there's a professional installer, it goes up to 200. So offsetting some of that. Chillers, air cooled and water cooled, energy management systems. If you don't have that, there are rebates on that. Carbon monoxide sensors, right? So let's make sure that the building is safe. From a carbon monoxide perspective, when you install a carbon monoxide sensor, that's a $250 rebate. Again, paperwork's required, But there's so much information on here, and obviously custom solutions, and then getting into if your refrigeration. So your cooling cases, right? The cold chain and everything that like that. Kitchen equipment. So are you a restaurant? The griddle, upgrading the griddles, 225 each. Ice makers, 50 to 125 each. So there's a lot of potential, and I can help you out with that. I'm actually recently applied to be a trade ally, as I met the facilitator of the program, whose name also happens to be Sharon. And no, you don't need to be a woman named Sharon to be in the industry, but a few of us are. And so one of the things with the fit facility is also being able to bring in incentives such as that, right? Doing it for the right thing. And oh, by the way, let's put money back in your pocket. And there's a dollar amount. I believe in 2025 fiscal year, the total rebate is $300,000. Okay, so it's not chump change, guys. It's substantial. And 2026, I'll be attending a webinar later this week to understand more about the 26 program. So I don't know how the numbers may have changed, but it is true, and it is a real thing. And here in Arizona, we have again SRP in my neck of the woods, and APS is another one. And so APS also has programs. SRP is the one I'm working with most closely at the moment, but other utility companies around, or just say utilities around the country, also offer these types of rebates. And again, there are many other types that are out there, but you don't know if you don't know, right? And if no one's told you these things exist, how on earth are you going to find out that they do exist? So again, I invite you to join me for this fit facility webinar series. I know I have fun when I talk to people about their buildings, and one of my favorite things to do, and that's why as I've reached this point in my career, right, and I look back on, I've had some very key mentors along the way. When I first joined Train in Fort Wayne, Indiana, as a wet behind the ears double E, so a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering, my favorite thing was controls. All right, so I joined the Train commercial sales office in Fort Wayne. And I had the most amazing mentor, and his name was Bill Ketch. And he was comedic relief. He was one heck of an artist. The sketches he made were so much fun, but he was also a fountain of knowledge in helping me understand HVAC and how to properly size equipment, how to properly do selections, how to do project takeoffs, right? And if you don't know what that is, you're missing a whole bunch of things. And historically, one of my favorite things to do is the plan and specs, right? You've got the blueprint, and I put them on my drafting table. We did have microfiche, that was state of the art at that time, but the blueprints, and then the thick or thin specs, right? All the specifications and all the divisions when you take a look at the CI master format spec, right? And so when you're looking at all of that, it was just so much fun to go through the process. And one of my favorite things to do is, yeah, colored pencils, coloring, right? Going through, and you might have a building that's got 100 variable air volume boxes, VAV boxes. And while you're doing the takeoffs, there's a lot of information to digest, right? And so I loved color coding things, so I could go through and I could match up. I've got my table, right? My schedule of VAV boxes, or my schedule of air handlers, or chillers, or pumps, or lighting systems, whatever that happened, even diffusers, right? A VAV box may have multiple diffusers to put the air into the office space, right? So it is a very in-depth industry, and so much has changed, but so much has stayed the same. It's still the fundamentals of physics and thermal mass transfer. All we're doing is moving heat around in a building, right? That's all we're doing. And or exchanging between mediums, air, refrigerant, water, or a water mixture, things like that. And obviously there are other ways to do heat and mass transfer that continue to evolve as the technology evolves, but the principles are still the same. And I'm a controls girl, ASHRAE girl, 20 years with the BACnet, Building Automation and Control Network, SSPC 135, within ASHRAE. I've been a member for 20 years with BACnet. I've been a voting member in the past. I've been a member of the leadership team with BACnet, as well as other ASHRAE committees. So you'll see I call myself ASHRAE Girl, and that came from when I was actually involved with the National Smart Grid project back in 2009. I was part of one of the original architects of the building to grid interactions through it was SPC 201P, I believe was the designation at that time. It's now evolved, but that was the ASHRAE standard for the building side of things. And then I was part of the leadership committee as well on the NASB, the North American Energy Standards Board. And that was building the grid side of things. So you need to, in an organized fashion, have the grid work with the building, right? And so much when it comes to the energy independence and security, a lot has been shifted over time, right? But when we go back to the original intent, it is how can we most effectively and efficiently control and operate our buildings without adversely affecting the health and the productivity of the occupants, right? So there are technologies out there that, at least for myself, I consider to be a little questionable, right? So is it good or is it not good, right? And what I seek to do is share what I know and point you in a direction where if you'd like to dig more deeply, that gives you that opportunity. So again, when we're in the fit facility, week 4, when you put together that roadmap, do I really want LED lights in my building? Do I want those LED fixtures? Or would I just simply like a more efficient ballast? And I'm not talking about the energy rebates right here, right? What I'm talking about is the wavelengths of light and things such as that. So it may make perfect sense in your facility to go LED everywhere, right? Rather than just accent lighting and things like that. Or you may want to be a bit more cautious about wavelengths and its effect on the human body, right? Productivity, even relaxation, right? The wrong color temperature of light, and that's a thing, right? When we talk about lighting systems, we'll talk about what is color temperature? What the heck is she saying? Or, yeah, I know what she's saying. I know more than she does, and that's great, right? I'm not claiming to be a subject matter expert in lighting, but I know enough to be dangerous and get the right experts involved, right? And so there are all sorts of decisions along the way. You may not have room for the different fixtures, right? And when you add lights that generate heat, you need to think about that when you're doing your building load calculations, right? So that's a way of understanding how much heating and cooling and ventilation you may need in a facility, and so much more, right? And so going back to the mentoring side of things, I've had the opportunity over the years to have some wonderful mentors. And one of my favorite things to do is to turn around, and I still am seeking to be a sponge, right? Learn as much as I can whenever I can, right? Where it makes sense. And the other side of it, though, is there are people who are coming up in the industry. The Phoenix area has a very active ASHRAE group. They had a training about 3 weeks ago at the most beautiful at the Desert Botanical Gardens here in the Phoenix area, right? Scottsdale, more a little closer to Scottsdale, and it was fun because it was intro to HVAC, and I thought, I want to go hang out with these people, do a little networking, see who might be interested in my Fit Facility Challenge and what gaps exist out there, right? And so one of the most fundamental questions, if you've been in the industry for 5 years, 10 years, 30, 40, 50 years, I know someone who's been an engineer for 50 years and he is rocking it, right? But then you've got the newer people, right? There was the young lady who was sitting next to me. She'd been in the industry for 1 month, right? There are others who've been in the industry for a year or more, but it takes time to understand everything. But the question was, okay, you selected the equipment, you put in the set points. How do you know you're achieving those set points? How do you know that that is the temperature or the relative humidity in your space? Well, do you know? And some of you do, some of you don't, or may not simply have thought about it. But there are controls that are on these pieces of equipment. They could be very simple on-off controls, right? Just like a light switch. Or it could just be adjusting the temperature, right? Some of you probably remember that gold round Honeywell analog mercury switch thermostat, right? That was a thermometer thermostat that was in your house. And having people step back and say, oh, wow, okay, you've got a physical piece of equipment and it moves things. It reads values, right? It takes in data and it moves mechanical things, right? When I first joined Train in the Fort Wayne, Indiana sales office, and I went to one of the account managers, sales engineers. His name was Jerry Callinger. And I said, Jerry, I want to get into controls. He says, you're going to learn the mechanical side first, right? So again, I was a double E, really comfortable with DDC, all that stuff, right? Logic, control loops, right? Is it a closed loop? Is it an open loop? What are my inputs and my outputs? But what people forget, and especially today, as we are so much more electronic, so much more virtual, is people forget there's something at the end of the smartphone. There's something at the end of that laptop, at that screen that you're looking at, right? You're doing some cloud interactions, right? It could be a thick client, as in it's installed on a workstation or a laptop, or more and more these days, it's cloud-based, right? People forget there's something at the end of that wire, that digital trail. And so, what I'm saying is you might be reading refrigerant temperatures or air temperatures, right? What's my supply air temperature, my discharge air temperature that I'm putting into the space? What's the return air temperature? What coming back from the space? So going to a closed loop type of system. What's the temperature of that outdoor air? Or even more importantly, especially if you're in a place that's hot and humid, what is the enthalpy? So what is the temperature and the humidity associated with that airstream? Again, if you're not thinking about their live things, is economizers, free cooling, you're not going to use that all year round because it could be 50 degrees outside, right? But it could be raining and you could be at 100% relative humidity. Do you really want to bring that cold, clammy, moist air into your space and increase? We've all been in those buildings, right? And if you've ever been in the Southwest during monsoon season and something called uh, swamp cooling or evaporative cooling, all they're doing is using the power of evaporation to cool down the air, which is great in the dry climate of the peak of the summer. But when monsoon season comes around, you don't want that cold, clammy air coming in. You'd rather be drier. Many of us would rather be drier and hotter than 10 or 15 degrees cooler and clammy as heck. It's just, then you're back in the Midwest, right? I spent 17 years living in Minnesota, and yeah, Minnesota is hot and humid in the summertime. And the last thing you want to do is introduce more humidity. So turning the desert into the Midwest, not always so good. So again, going back to understanding what it is you're controlling, what it is that's controlling the building. And so that's also part of what we'll be looking at. We're not going to go deeply into all the systems because my subject matter expertise is HVAC and automation, the energy management systems, right? And so I know enough about these other systems to bring them together elegantly, but you need to know about these end devices. So those will be some of the things that we'll be taking a look at as well. And so again, going back to if you're new to the industry or you've just never looked at this side of the industry before, we're actually going to step back and take a little time and talk about those things. What is the IO or the input output associated with that? Because that helps you understand how energy is being used in your system. And so actually, I think we're at that point. I've been rambling a little bit, and this is our very first virtual live. I think at this point, what I'm going to do is wrap up for a little bit. I'm going to post this video and enjoy. Feel free to laugh along with me as I laugh. But again, I will be adding links so that you can take a look at registering for these fit facilities. And if you don't want to join this time, who do you know who would benefit? So for me, yeah, I make a little money from this. Great, right? It call it my little, we'll call it the dog money, right? The doggy bye-bye trip type of money, right? But more importantly for me is I am of service because what I want to do is be able to turn around and help those who are coming up in the industry, right? Or those who want to expand their knowledge in the industry. because it is a continuously growing, but they're continuously growing and evolving world, including moving into AI as we're going forward. But at the same time, the systems, the principles of the operation of the equipment within those systems and systems of systems, it's still the same thing. We're working with mechanical and electrical components. And so there are certain laws of physics that and chemistry that we need to follow. So again, I appreciate your time. And if you lasted this long, that's fantastic. And hope to have you join. All right.